Now, I'll be the first one to say, I am probably not the guy you should come to for a Dragon Quest retrospective, and I know, believe me, not a great way to start a series of in-depth reviews, but I have virtually no experience with the franchise. I mean, I've played through 11, and I have some secondhand experience with number 8 that we'll get to when we get to, but since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated by the Dragon Quest series. When I was younger, my game time was dominated by platformers. In my teenage years, I fell into the realm of first-person shooters, and these days I'm more interested in action games. But one genre I still have yet to give much time are RPGs. That was always my older brother's forte. Around the late 2000s, we shared an Xbox 360, and I remember him bringing home all sorts of huge turn-based RPGs. I would watch him play these games like younger brothers do, but I never had any desire to play them myself. The only kind of turn-based game I ever gave the time of day was Pokemon. These were the only turn-based games I had played at the time. My brother and I would share the experience during every generation's release. We would each get one version of the game and we would play them side by side. But then the years would pass and my older brother would leave for college. After I didn't have him to go through the games with me, I dropped Pokemon altogether aside from maybe a few spin-offs. This is when I got into those other genres on the 360, like I mentioned. But when my brother would come home from college for holidays or whatever, he would always tell me about the new Dragon Quest game he'd been chipping away at. So I had some previous knowledge of the franchise, I just never had the idea to try one for myself. Besides Dragon Quest Rocket Slime. But yeah, he was always a much bigger fan of the series. From what I observed with the guy, the longer and grindier the game, the better. I can only imagine that those long study sessions for exams were stressful, so in order to give his brain a break, he would dive into games that he could sink countless hours into. What does any of this have to do with me? Well, I told you how I wasn't really interested in turn-based games back then. That all started to change after I played Dragon Quest XI. I made a video on it back in 2021, but that game lit a fire underneath me, encouraging me to not be scared of games with turn-based battle systems. And it worked. Now, personally, I am not as well versed as I could be in the world of turn-based RPGs. As of this recording, I've almost finished my first mainline Final Fantasy game, I made a 3-hour-long video on Baldur's Gate 3, and I've sampled some others here and there that I really enjoyed. Thus, I said what I said in the beginning of this whole thing. I'm not an expert on Dragon Quest. I'm not even close to being an expert on the entire genre, but I want to become a fan. And I think that's reason enough for me to commit to this whole thing. A part of this is to continue broadening my horizons in the genre, but I also think my unfamiliar status with the franchise is unique. I have no experience with the franchise, which means I have no expectations. I want to give my thoughts on every game in this long-running RPG series with almost no baggage, very little prior knowledge, and no safety nets. I will also, for the most part, be sticking with the original releases for each entry. As much as I want to play the 2D HD remakes for the original trilogy, or hell, any of the other remakes, I feel like it will be more interesting to see the evolution of the series through the original releases. I'm going to try and play the most traditional releases I can, alongside one of the remakes for each of the original trilogy. And if I do my research and see that a remake of one of the other games really changes a lot, then maybe I'll double dip down the line too. But I'll mostly just be playing it by ear. I don't want to get your hopes up or anything, because if there's one thing I know, it's that Dragon Quest games can get long as f***. I'm not trying to burn myself out of this franchise after the third entry, you know what I mean? For today's subject, I will be looking at an emulated version of the original Dragon Warrior release. I kind of feel bad for emulating my first time with these games, so as a counterbalance, I went and purchased the Switch version of Dragon Quest 1. Jumping ahead a bit here, I did the same thing for Dragon Quest 2 and 3. And you might be asking, why don't you play these ports for the video? And you know, I could do that, but my official statement is, I want to stay as close to the original release as possible for the integrity of the retrospective or whatever. But my off-the-book answer is, because these ports look terrible. The sterile, cheap look, it all just looks like a remake of the first game in Flash. These ports will be kept far, far away from these videos. I'm going to do my best to cover as much as I can, but to reiterate, I am a stranger to this franchise. I will not be a good source of trivia or a comprehensive list of everything from any given entry. I'm going to do my best, but hopefully the fun of this retrospective will be hearing a newbie's in-depth thoughts on this legendary franchise. Wish me luck, because now we start a new journey. This is Dragon Quest. We're all aware of the gaming giant known as Square Enix, but before their merger with Squaresoft, there was simply Enix Corporation, a Japanese multimedia publisher who oversaw tons of video games, manga, and other entertainment. Enix began life in 1975 as a real estate advertisement agency. That never found its footing, prompting the founder, Yasuhiro Fukushima, to divert the company's attention to creating video games. To entice fresh talent in joining him on this endeavor, Fukushima held a competition, the Enix Game Hobby Program Contest. Initially, no one cared about this obvious talent fishing ploy, so in order to put more eyes on the project, a whopping 1 million yen cash prize was attached to the competition. This understandably drummed up some interest in the listing. When all was said and done, over 300 entries were submitted. 13 ended up winning. I'm not sure how that 1 million yen was divided amongst 13 different projects. Maybe they split it all, but I honestly don't know, and right now, it's not important. Thanks to this competition, Enix had an impressive lineup of titles to release under their umbrella by the end of February 1983. By the end of that year, half of the top 10 best-selling games of the year came from Enix. The company would continue to follow this business model of outsourcing development to other teams while helping them along with the advertising and publishing duties. This would seat Enix as one of the industry's earliest video game publishers, something like a Devolver Digital, Xbox Studios, 505 Games, but let's zoom back in here. One of those project winners was called Love Match Tennis, and its creator was none other than Yuji Horii. After a few success stories under Enix, this young creative would become inspired by Western games like Wizardry and Ultima. He would band together with another one of Enix's designers, Koichi Nakamura, and well-known composer Koichi Sugiyama to form Chunsoft. With the core team assembled, they got to work creating a role-playing game that would leave behind the complicated aspects of Dungeons & Dragons to appeal to a wider audience. The story would be a basic romp that saw a hero vanquishing a great evil or something. It likely wasn't the team's main concern, but with Sugiyama signed on to compose the soundtrack, there was only one more dream member the team wanted to tie the whole thing together. Manga artist Akira Toriyama was recommended to Mr. Horii by his manga editor at the time. It's probably one of the biggest boons to the series from the outside looking in, but Akira Toriyama's legendary illustrations are so immediately eye-catching, lending his bold artistic style to the front of the cover, as well as designing characters and monsters, gives this entire franchise its unique, eye-arresting quality. Thanks to Sugiyama's music and Toriyama's art, Dragon Quest was able to forge a very distinct feeling that is still unmatched to this very day. It's part of the reason I've been so interested in it for the longest time as a massive Dragon Ball fan, which is not a unique story, as I'm sure most of, if not all fans of the quests are also a fan of the balls. I probably could have phrased that a bit better, but as we go further along, particularly with the games that I have actual history with, I'll explain my love for this art style more, but for right now, all I have to say is rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. These gentlemen, as well as a few others, would give Japan the original Dragon Quest in 1986. Developed by Chunsoft and published by Enix, it had some trouble getting off the ground, but eventually saw great success in Japan. However, the localized North American version would see a release the following year in '87 with a name change of all things. To avoid infringing on the tabletop game Dragon Quest, Chunsoft's RPG darling was renamed to Dragon Warrior. And speaking of, I think it's about time we actually started talking about the game. After beginning a new quest, you name the hero, who is a descendant of the legendary warrior Erdrick, whatever you want, and are given a rundown by King Lorik.
It is told that in the past, Erdrick fought demons with a ball of light. Then came the Dragon Lord, who stole the precious globe and hid it in the darkness. Thou must help us recover the ball of light and restore peace to our land.
And from there, you're really on your own. There is a cave slightly to the north of the starting castle, Tantagel, where you'll find Erdrick's tablet. This was left for his descendant, you. This tells the hero that he needs to collect Erdrick's equipment to stop the evil Dragon Lord. And as far as the story goes, that's it. There really isn't much of an ongoing narrative to comment on because these games really didn't do that yet. It's coming, as we'll see later on in the retrospective, but for right now, the only thing of importance is stopping the Dragon Lord and saving the world. The king does also tell you to speak with the guard, as they have knowledge that may aid thee. This is true in a narrative sense, but it's also true in a gameplay sense as well. The only way you're going to make it in this game is by talking to every single NPC you come across and writing down what they say if it sounds like a unique location, item, or person. This guard asks me,
"Dost thou know about Princess Gwaelin?"
To which I say, of fucking course I don't. But then this guy goes on to say that the enemy kidnapped the princess half a year ago, and the king didn't say anything about that. What kind of father is this guy?
Never does the king speak of it, but he must be suffering much.
Oh. Well, okay. But that's what I'm talking about. The NPCs do a decent job of directing you for the most part. The next town over, there's a guy who tells me exactly where to go. It also doesn't hurt that some of these cute little square guys say the craziest shit.
Tell King Lorik that the search for his daughter has failed. I am almost gone.
Almost gone? Jesus, dude, is it really that bad? But that doesn't mean it's perfect in Dragon Warrior. A lot of stuff is still cryptic and not laid out well enough for the player. There isn't a sense of direction by today's standards. You can go anywhere you want in the beginning of the game, only stopped by obstacles that you'll interact with and monsters that are statistically way out of your league. But towards the end of the adventure, I'm not ashamed to say that it got pretty turned around on some of these things. So the map basically has a large left and right side with points of interest scattered across both halves. Monsters get more difficult the further south you go down on both sides, and as you get to certain points, you gather tools and items that allow you to travel further on the opposite side as well. Up until a certain point, I thought I had done a decent job of gathering every tool I needed as I went along. But then I get to the very bottom of the right side of the map, and there is an obviously important cave. I go in, and this old fart in here tells me that I am not the one Erdrick predicted to save us, and then he kicks me out of the cave. This didn't help point me in the right direction at all. In fact, it kinda confused the hell out of me. But it's cool, I can be resourceful. I go back up to the very top of the right side of the map and enter the town of Cole. I talk to someone who tells me that there is a town to the south called Remoldar, and someone else tells me that Remoldar is the leading supplier of keys. But okay, I need to head back to Remoldar, a town I was already pretty familiar with for reasons I will explain in a moment, to search for someone who will sell me keys. I run all over this town. I find a wizard vendor in this building here, but he just asks me if I've been to a magic temple, and when I say yes, he just says,
"In this temple do the sun and rain meet."
Okay, yeah, sure. I still couldn't find any damn keys though, until, that's weird. I see an NPC hanging outside of the town. All of these towns have fairly strict boundaries where you can and can't go before you're thrown back to the world map. There are actually a few moments where I accidentally walk one tile too far and get thrown out of the town and have to come back into the town at the main entrance. But anyway, on a whim, I tried to go talk to this guy, and it worked. And that means I might be able to walk over to this bridge on the other side of the town, and I can! And this man sells magic keys! Thank God! And I test this out in Remoldar with an old man who has assumedly been trapped behind this door for a long time, telling me there is a magic item 4 steps south of the bath in Cole. Okay, that's good info. So I head back to the town of Cole, and 1, 2, 3, 4, I now have a magic flute. I went on a journey to unlock all the doors I remember seeing throughout the game. A lot of them just had miscellaneous treasures behind them, some were NPCs who had more information, but finally, I went back to rescue the princess. I had actually found her after beating a really tough dragon fight, but after that I still needed a key. So I come back to open the door and the princess embraces me. I walk her the entire distance back to the castle, and when I present her to her father, the princess says,
Ross, do you love me?
Well, I don't even really know you, do I? And it's from here on that I feel like the game starts wearing its late 80s RPG on the NES badge a little too tightly. Halfway down the left side of the map, I go into this destroyed town named Hawkness. It's been completely obliterated and overrun by the Dragon Lord's forces. There's also, as you can see, nothing of note in this town. Well, besides enemies that, come to find out, only appear towards the bottom of the left side of the map. I revisited this place a few times and didn't learn until eventually looking it up that I needed to walk onto an inconspicuous tree tile to trigger an encounter with a special boss enemy. After beating this axe knight, I'm meant to search the ground to find Erdrick's armor. The search command is something I have used liberally, mind you. I've been searching the last tile and dead ends like Pokemon has taught me to do for years, but it never got me results here in Dragon Warrior. So excuse me for not thinking to do it now. The only other time I found something from searching was when I was told to search 4 paces south of the Fountain Coal when I found the Fairy Flute. But Erdrick's equipment is great. On top of having the best defense in the game, it allows me to walk across poison tiles without taking any damage, and I regain 1 HP for every step I take in the overworld. This is actually the start of finding all of Erdrick's equipment. In order to gain access to the last area, you have to find Erdrick's old gear and prove yourself to the old dude who kicked us out of that one cave.
Oh, I hate you.
This is the only moment in the entire playthrough where I truly cried foul. When you rescue the princess, she gives you an item called Gwaelin's Love. When used, it'll tell you how many points you need to level up, which is pretty cool, but it will also tell you how far you are from Tantagel. As I played, I didn't realize that this number correlated to an NPC in the town of Cantlin who says,
"From Tantagel Castle, travel 70 leagues to the south and 40 to the east."
So, using this information, you have to walk and find the exact tile where it says 70-40, then you hit the search button to find Erdrick's token. I understand this now, but this did not track with me. Having to choose which of these random patches of background to walk to was not intuitive and not explained as well as it could have been. But hey, late 80s NES RPG. It could have been worse. But this token is enough to impress the old jerk in that cave. He combines the Staff of Rain we got from this small dungeon east of Cole and the Stone of Sunlight we found in a cave that's actually just outside of Tantagel city limits. The old jerk combines them and creates the Rainbow Drop. This summons a stupendous bridge made entirely of rainbows that just appears like a normal bridge. Now the way to the final dungeon is open, and we can find Erdrick's sword at the bottom of said dungeon. Now that we have the legendary warrior's equipment, the Dragon Lord is defeated. What's that sound? Oh! It's our friend! Grinding! This guy! For as limited as it is in a lot of ways, Dragon Warrior is an RPG from head to toe. Modern RPGs owe a lot to this game for laying the foundation. I can respect that, but I will say that the command menu was a bit of an adjustment period for me. You know how more modern RPGs operate with a context-sensitive interact button? They'll let you climb stairs or ladders by walking into them and open doors with a single button once you're on top of them or right next to them. Well, Dragon Warrior instead offers the command window. When out in the overworld, you'll have this window that will show different actions that you can perform. To say, open a door, you will have to bring up the window, scroll over to the door option, use it, and that will unlock the magic door in front of you, given that you have a magic key in your inventory. Same with walking over to a stair tile, opening the command window, and pressing stairs. It's neat to see this piece of RPG history, where they were still staying a little too close to the tabletop games that inspired this generation of video game adventures. The kind that gave you all these options to interact with the environment through unique commands. But I'm very glad we moved past opening a menu and pressing the talk command to talk to an NPC, or walking over to chests and pressing take to, take the item. And let me tell you, the peak of this crap are these two guards. You already used one of your magic keys to get into this room, so when you walk over to them, pick the talk command, only for one of them to say,
"I'm too busy. Ask the other guard."
Okay, I can do that.
I'm too busy. Ask the other guard.
I'm trying to save the world, douchebags! Oh my god. All of these actions should be automated, but I'm sure this won't be a big deal for very long. Fingers crossed, at least. Commands like status are somewhat useful because they display your character's current stats. Spell lets you look through your list of magic, and item lets you browse your limited inventory. One thing that I think limits the original Dragon Warrior are its available strategies and the party comp you can create around those strategies, which are none. The only playable character in this adventure is the player's hero. No other characters join the party. It's a solo adventure to the highest degree. So, that is to say there really are no strategies in this game. You still defeat monsters to gain experience points to level up, which will increase your stats and earn you new magic spells. Plus, you'll get money to buy new equipment, which will also make your numbers go up. But making your number go up is the strategy in Dragon Warrior. And let me tell you now, I feel so bad for the kids back then who had to go through this game on original hardware. This game is a grind, my brother. It is the one thing this game's age does not excuse for me. I can get the kinda cryptic NPC hints, even the one that tells you where Erdrick's token is. I see how that would be cool. I still have the Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire strategy guide where my brother and I wrote down the Braille alphabet so we could unlock the room to the Reggies. Today, for someone who is just trying to get through the game, that's annoying. but for some kids trying to get the most out of one of the only games your parents are going to buy you that year, I imagine that would have been an awesome find. It probably would have stuck with them like the Reggie thing stuck for me. But this grind is just unbearable. Some enemies do take a hint of strategy to take down, and by that I mean you will do two different things in fights. You either hammer the attack button and don't let go until that enemy drops, or for enemies like the wizards, the purple skeletons, some of the knights, and the flying vulture chickens, you cast stop spell as soon as the fight starts so they can't cast their hard-hitting spells or heal themselves. Even though it took me a minute to realize that when casting stop spell, sometimes it will say that won't work. Any normal person would take that as, okay, that enemy can't be silenced. They are immune to having their magic blocked. But no, that just means that your cast failed. That enemy can be silenced, just try again. But yeah, those are the only two strategies you need to employ. Even casting a basic heal in fights is pointless, especially towards the back half of the game when the enemies start hitting for crazy damage. The amount that you would heal is going to be less than what the monster will deal, so it's way more effective to just bum rush the fight and try to get them down before you go down. The exception to this is the Dragon Lord's second phase, the very last fight, but it just becomes strictly a numbers game. You hammer the attack button, the Dragon Lord will take half your health with his fire breath, so then you use the heal more spell, which almost acts like a full restore, and then you trade another blow. You repeat this process until the game says he's had enough. Battles aren't really what I would call fun, if I'm being honest. You're not playing Dragon Warrior for the battle system, because, I mean, the other spells you get are either meant to make traversal possible or heal you. Things like the Radiant spell illuminate the caves better than basic torch items, Return warps you to Tantagel, the Hurt spell is used in battle to do magic damage, but that's MP that you should be using to heal yourself. And eventually you do get the Hurt More spell, but again, the weapons you get outdamage this spell so hard that it's just wasting mana. And preserving your mana will make the journey to Beefcake slightly less painful. Only slightly though. The early game economy is so strict if you don't know the tricks of the trade right out the gate. I definitely didn't know what I was doing, so I began my adventure and grabbed the 3 chests that awaited me in the starting room. One is a torch, another is a whopping 120 gold, and the other is a key that gets used when you use it to unlock the door out of this room. The king apparently likes messing with the hero because why the f would he give me a key and then make me use it? Anyway, after this, I walk out of the castle and up to the next town. I find a shop that's selling a few items like armor and weapons. I buy the leather armor because I feel like defense is more important and then run out of money, but I still want that copper sword in the shop. No big deal, I realize that I can still fight enemies with my bare fists. I just don't do a lot of damage. I go out and start fighting some slimes and do pretty well. I'm earning experience, I'm earning gold, but noticeably slowly. Oh well, I start running into enemies that are way more dangerous than the standard slimes, most notably these witches. These things were my early game jump scare. They were also the enemies that taught me the biggest lesson in the early game. So before I knew what was up, I was scared that death would be as punishing as it is in Final Fantasy. I assumed I would have to reload a save and all that experience that I earned before I died would just have never happened. But that's not the case. I just respawned at Tantagel Castle in front of the king. So I kept running out and fighting until I dropped over and over. I would rest at the end to heal occasionally, but that would cost me 6 gold for every stay. And when I kill a slime, I'm only getting like 1 or 2 gold per kill. And I only get to kill around 3 or 4 slime before I have to go rest up. I would periodically check my gold and realize this math ain't mathin', which pushes me to do some research. And apparently, a Dragon Quest tradition starts as early as this game. Anytime you die in battle, you lose half of your total gold. Damn! I've been trying to save up for a weapon and I've been shooting myself in the foot. That's the beauty of a blind playthrough, I guess. After this realization, I started being more cautious with my grinding. It also just became way easier too. At level 3, you unlock the heal spell. It costs a good bit of your limited MP pool at this point, but there's a wizard right when you first enter Tantagel Castle who refills your mana for free as many times as you want. Which means now I don't need to go stay at the inn as long as I stay around here. So until about level 6, I did just that, fighting enemies until I had the stats to more comfortably take out the enemies like those damned witches, and then when I accumulate enough gold, I buy the most expensive weapon, shield, and armor the town has to offer. And as far as progression goes, this is the same song and dance from this moment in the starting area all the way until you fight the Dragon Lord. After coming to a new city, the first thing I do is go to the shop, check to see how much the equipment costs, see, yep, that sure is the most expensive sword I've seen in this game. Then I walk right back outside and start grinding. Hours, literal hours go by where I'm just running back and forth outside the city, beating monsters, and when my health gets low enough, I pop as many heal spells as it takes for me to get back up to full, then I go back out there and keep fighting monsters. Then when my mana is running low, I go back into town, rest at the inn, then I go back out to repeat the process. Not only do I do this for the sword, but also for the armor, and then for the shield if they were better, because you need those bigger numbers to make it out there. Dragon Warrior's combat is nothing but a numbers game. It is about nothing more than fighting enough fights to raise your level, which will raise your health and mana, which will allow you to cast more heal spells and stay out in the field longer, which will allow you to raise more money, to purchase equipment, which all funnels back into itself again. When I reached the Dragon Lord, the final encounter, I was level 17, but my health simply wasn't high enough to survive an extra attack in between my hits. It statistically was not possible to beat him at level 17. Even with Erdrick's sword, Erdrick's armor, and the silver shield, the best offense and defense the game has to offer. So what did I do? I backtracked to Cantlin, I sat my happy ass down for, again, hours until I was level 20. But this also took precious time of my life that I won't get back. Plus, all the times when I'm running back into these towns and the unmovable citizens that just have nowhere better to be, they just stand in front of you, blocking your way. Sometimes you even have two of these assholes blocking the narrow hallways. Can you please move? This is one of the main reasons I plan on emulating my time with these games, mainly the earlier entries. Speed up features and save states have saved me so much time, and I don't think I'll ever play one of these classic games without it. I can't really tell you anything else besides grinding without a speed boost is absolutely soul crushing. The enemies don't require anything complex at all. It is literally just smacking stuff with your sword and the occasional stop spell cast. Maybe you'll get the rare critical hit where the enemy takes major damage, but that's not something you can control to my knowledge. And with the encounter rate that can be absolutely ridiculous, I don't have the desire to see this game as it was originally released. I want you to see battles happen every step for upwards of 5 steps and then tell me that you're 100% engaged. You're lying. I know you're lying. Instead, I would recommend playing almost any of the other remakes of this game. And to be fair, there are a lot of remakes in the Dragon Quest series. The further back we are in this series, the more re-releases we've got to sift through. I can't go through all of these versions in their entirety because this retrospective would never end, and I also don't think the Japanese-only cell phone version of Dragon Quest is really worth my time. But in the same vein, I do still want to provide an updated opinion on ways that you can play this game. I didn't touch the Switch version, that should go without saying. From what I've gathered online, there is yet to be a definitive version of Dragon Quest 1. You will definitely get a better experience the more recent the version you play is. Like, the Game Boy version is cool and has some extra content, but the smartphone version is playable in portrait mode and the visuals are cleaner despite your preference in art style. The shiny new elephant in the room is obviously the HD remake coming out soon for Dragon Quest 1 and 2. The games look absolutely breathtaking, and when they release, I am confident that you would be better off playing them instead of any other version if you just have to have the original Dragon Warrior experience. But until then, I took a different approach to modernizing the original game. To complement my time with Dragon Warrior on the NES, I played through Dragon Quest Remix Plus, a fan remake created in RPG Maker that was released November 10th, 2023 by Nightfly Studios. My goal in playing through a fan remake is not to make a comprehensive list of the differences between an official Famicom game from 1987 and a fan game that was made in a game creation software in 2003, because from the small amount of browsing I've done, the version of RPG Maker that Remix Plus was created in was designed to run in Windows 7. Thus, it has a hard time running on modern hardware. I'm sure you'll notice it as you watch my footage. Cities and indoor areas run perfectly, but the overworlds and other large areas that have tons of unique tiles and lighting effects drop to sub 60 frame rates like it's their damn job. And just to get the obvious out of the way, this fan game looks incredible. The towns are leaps and bounds ahead of the original release, the caves are far easier to make your way through. It's a small nitpick, but I don't really like how the torches and glow spell don't gradually get weaker as they get closer to running out. It was a neat feature feature in the NES version to try and make it a few steps further with the shrinking field of view to maybe save on some MP. In Remake Plus, however, your vision immediately goes back to a hand's distance in front of your face when time runs out. The caves are far more distinct as a whole though. They're still maze-like, but you can now be certain that you're getting close to something important when you start seeing banners and suspicious columns on the walls. It's a small thing, but it helps. The battles also look so much better. I think this is where the remake really shines the brightest. Since the enemy is the only thing on the screen that has to be rendered, they can be fully realized with lots of colors and shading, and they even animate. The battle backgrounds are really unique as well. Every tile that you're able to encounter enemies on seem to have some sort of special background that monsters will approach you on. There's even a bridge background for the few times that you run into monsters on the singular bridge tiles on the overworld. It really is a huge leap from the original. We even have a few new enemy types that varied things up a little bit visually. Look at how tiny the night enemies are. They're so adorable. Visually, it's a far more varied experience. It's just unfortunate that the gameplay side is... well, we'll get there in a second. It's a great looking game, man, and the visuals are definitely the biggest selling point if you ask me. Well, selling point for a free game, but you know what I mean. But if the trade-off for some choppier gameplay here and there is the truckload of quality of life improvements Remake Plus brings to the table, then I'd take it every day, no questions. I may not exactly include the story among the changes that have been made unquestionably great since the original wasn't exactly what I would call legible? Yeah, there's some more flavor text that informs me more of the setting and how the Dragon Lord is even more of a dick. The change to Hawkness is one of the best as far as the story goes. It's not much, but when you walk into the town, you can see that it's not just a desolate mess of a town that likely has not seen a warm body in weeks. Here in Remix Plus, there are still people reeling from the Dragon Lord's attack. No one says anything particularly interesting, but seeing dead bodies sitting in pools of poison or families held out underground definitely gets the point across. The princess is still afflicted with her Stockholm Syndrome from the original release and claims that she's in love with the hero immediately after he saves her. The sage that opens up the Rainbow Bridge towards the end of the game tells you exactly what you're looking for, giving the player a clear idea of what they need to find. It's just a way more comfortable time overall. It hits all the same beats as the original NES game, so I was able to go through it pretty efficiently based on memory alone, but if I had started with Remix Plus, I think I would have been able to finish the game without looking anything up. And to me, the biggest contributing factor to this is the simplification of the player's options. I'm probably spoiling myself too early by playing a modern take on this game, but it's so much more comfortable. No more stairs command, no more doors command, no more search command. I know I just said it, but it has to be reiterated. This is how it should be. When you walk into stair tiles, you go up the stairs instantly. When I'm suspicious of a tile on the ground because of that Pokemon predisposition we talked about, boom, I just press A on the tile and it rewards my curiosity immediately. There are even a few instances where sparkles will appear on the map, and this just flags you down to come grab this not-so-hidden item. But there are also tiles that are less loud, so your mild exploration itch can still be scratched. And that mild itch will turn into head lice with all the extra areas that have been added. You have small settlements that house some, albeit uninteresting NPCs. Most towns have these wells that can house some extra goodies. Catlin now has like 3 general stores that all sell the same shit. You have this lady right here, this dude right across the aisle from him, this guy on the other side of town who gets a pass because he sells magic keys, and then this lady in the church. She's right next to the priest selling holy water for 20 gold a pop. There's commentary to be made there, but I'm not touching that. And there are even entirely new dungeons. There aren't many, and the few during the main adventure don't have much in the way of new rewards. It's mostly just clumps of money and getting an equipment upgrade early, but the few that are here have new challenges like puzzles and interesting dungeon design that goes beyond casting glow and finding which of these winding paths has a staircase at the end of it. And what about this new timed minigame where you have to grab as many items as you can within 2 minutes? I didn't care for this though. I played it when I was given a ticket or found one in the game world, but I didn't feel driven to try it on my own. I would be willing to bet that there are some great weapons that you can get early on if you know what path to take, but unfortunately I just went and did it the old-fashioned way, which most notably has seen a ton of improvement. As much as the visuals have been given a massive upgrade, the NPCs have been given a smack to the head to make them more understandable, and exploration has been streamlined in the best possible way, the battle system is relatively untouched. Your main damage numbers will still come from the swords that you buy from the shops that you grind for right outside the towns. There have been slight changes to make the medicine go down a bit easier, but not by much. The grind still exists, but there are measures to make it slightly less cumbersome. The game asks you to select a difficulty when you begin the game. From what I gather, the only difference to the difficulties are the amount of gold and experience you gain upon defeating enemies. I have no idea why someone would want to choose hard, because that just tells me you love grinding with a burning passion. I personally just picked normal, and this felt great. Level ups seemed to come at a much faster pace than in the original, even with that speed up feature enabled. The grinding was still there, but it wasn't as drawn out, which the biggest annoyance to grinding by far is the addition of the poison status. Scorpion enemies used to be another enemy to smack with your sword while grinding. You want to know what you do if you see one in Remake Plus? Yeah, no. If you get poisoned, your health will constantly be drained until you either consume an antidote herb, which costs money, or go to a church to request purification, which wastes time and costs a small amount of money. All of this is to say, ignore scorpions of any type in this remake. You can go so much longer and save much more money if you just don't give them the time of day. And money, which is arguably more important than experience, is handed out in way larger amounts thanks to the golems you can find towards the south of the right side of the island. In the NES version, this was the case as well. It was great to run into them because of the higher gold drop, but the gold bonus is even more substantial here. I deliberately went further south to grind when trying to buy the magic armor in Remoldar because it was faster than fighting the enemies right outside the town. They were more dangerous, sure, but the gold payout was worth it. The golems also demonstrate the extra dash of strategy enemies can employ now, along with a few new spells like Squelch, which can cure the poison status, but also that uses MP, so again, I just tell scorpions to f*** off. This remake has no shame in bringing in spells that won't be introduced until later in the series, like Buff, which increases your defense, and the Frizz line, which are your basic fire attacks. But again, that eats into my heal reserves, so attacking with magic wasn't much of a focus for me. Singing the praises of the golems again, they can charge up attacks, giving you an opportunity to use the defend feature. These cannon boxes were taking next to no damage from my sword strikes, even though I had just bought the flame sword, which you would think does fire damage, but whatever. I had yet to really try the Frizz spells out, so I gave it a whirl, and it took it out in 2 turns. Same thing with the post-game enemies like the fire spirits. They're weak to wind-based whoosh spells. So there you go, we got elemental weaknesses. A few boss fights from the original game benefit from the greater sense of presence here in the remake. Their attacks hit way harder, and you have to make sure you go into the fight prepared. And by prepared, I mean at full health. The giant golem fight outside of Cantlin was a good example of this. It kinda made me sweat a little bit because it's not set in stone how many turns it will stay asleep whenever you use the fairy flute. The NES giant golem fight was way less stressful. He stayed asleep for a very specific amount of time. The constantly being put to sleep strat was thrown back on me, however, when taking on the Axe Knight in Hawkness. This dude has been given some instructions on how to spam the hell out of that snooze spell. I was being put to sleep far more often than I would have been in the original release, which, as you could imagine, makes staying alive a little more difficult. That was actually the strategy for a few of the new post-game bosses as well. And I don't think Stop Spell, or Fizzle as it's called in Remake Plus, is as effective because it really wasn't working here. I tried to use it on several boss fights and it just doesn't work. It's not the end of the world because you ultimately just attack and mid-heal until you get past the encounter, but Remix Plus certainly does ask for a bit more after the credits roll. I was surprised that the game continued after I finished the battle with the Dragon Lord. After the Dragon Lord is beaten the NES version, it's just the credits and then you turn it off. Here in Remake Plus though, there's a banquet held in my honor. The king asks you to investigate these towers that were just unlocked to find information on this magic key. You head to the top of this tower in the southwest and fight a dinosaur with an axe. You find a kitty cat suit in said tower that lets you talk to animals. You board a haunted ghost ship with the quirkiest talking skeletons.
Damn it! We hit some shoals! I hope the captain doesn't kill... Wait!
I'm already dead.
You encounter the undead captain of the ship who went down fairly easily. You bring the information back to the king who tells you then to enter this world gate thing, which is where I stopped, partly because I think I've seen enough. The story really isn't evolving past anything that wasn't established in the main campaign. The gameplay loop of grinding my ass off to meet the next boss roadblock just to repeat the process over again isn't going anywhere either. And the main reason is this monster gate shit. So for those who are unfamiliar, this turns this game into a mystery dungeon. I start in what I assume are randomly generated map layouts where you're trying to find a staircase or well, which will then advance you to the next floor. There are items on the floor, and some layouts can be kind of wild with the different environments or hazards altogether. I am a huge fan of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, and as we'll see later on in this series, Dragon Quest has their fair share of exclusive Mystery Dungeon games. Chunsoft were the ones who started the trend, and the ones who were contracted to make make the Pokemon spin-offs in the first place. They are probably my favorite sub-series of Pokemon games, and I have said that multiple times. This sucks. Not the actual mystery dungeon aspects necessarily. Finding items and the exit is still as fun as one would expect. It's only the spike in enemy difficulty. I feel like this has to be a programming error, or maybe I'm just not a high enough level yet, which is stupid because the Pirate King was right before this and I beat him relatively easily. Some enemies are perfectly manageable. They hit a little harder than usual, but I can deal with that. It's enemies like these chimeras that I don't get. When they cast a spell, they do the expected amount of damage, which I assume doesn't scale with the monster's level. But when they hit me with a regular physical attack, why does it take out most of my health pool? I can't even catch up when using mid-heal, and it feels like it's random on when these enemies hit this hard. I don't understand it, and again, I feel like I've just seen the gist of what Remix Plus has to offer. It was quite unfortuitous that my time with Remix Plus had to come to an end like that, but I'm ready to move on. You know, it's funny. As I got towards endgame, I will say that I did feel more invested in my character's growth. There are items that permanently increase the hero's stats like life and defense seeds and magic potions, plus the inclusion of an accessory slot. So now, on top of the sword for attack, shield and armor for defense, you can choose to supplement other stats. A cape for agility to maybe help you act before the enemy, or maybe something like a bracer for an even larger defense bonus. The foundation is pretty set in stone, so it's tough to design and prepare players for encounters that require a strategy beyond what was present in the original release, but I appreciate Nightfly adding more features and options to the battle system. I am curious how long it will take me to bring down a metal slime during this retrospective. I ran into one during my time in the NES release and one during Remix Plus. Both got away from me before I could finish them, obviously. For those who are unaware, metal slimes are extremely rare encounters. They only have like 4 or 5 HP, but their defense is so astronomically high that they take only 1 or 2 damage per hit usually. They also are prone to fleeing within the first turn or two, which means you might get a stray hit on them, but count yourself extremely lucky if they don't run away after that. I know for a fact that there are ways to manipulate metal slime spawns and even methods to kill them more reliably in later entries, but as of now, they are very, very rare and very tough to take down. As far as starting points for old school JRPGs go, I think you could do a lot worse than Dragon Warrior. It paved the way for the JRPG in a lot of ways, and that can't be overstated. There are plenty of franchises, if not every single one of them if you want to talk broad strokes, that owe everything to Dragon Quest's first entry. It laid the template that so many would follow. Personally, I didn't hate my time with it. I think it was pretty solid considering the hardware, the time of release, and the fact that nobody else was really doing this. I wouldn't say that anything truly impressed me, but I enjoyed seeing where the series started. And here's hoping that the only place to go from here is up. Dragon Quest 1 is in the books, guys. As for now, I don't think I'm going to immediately jump into 2 because there is another RPG that just came out and I am feverishly wanting to play through that. I can't say for sure what I'm going to put out next, but I will definitely be playing through Claire Obscure Expedition 33 next. Hopefully, I will want to make a video on that game because from what I've played, it is so good. I would like to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters, White Ghost 117 and Nikki Coon 99. But yeah, I will see you guys next time in the Dragon Quest retrospective with Dragon Warrior 2.